In this video, I am so excited to be talking to you about Dr. Kristen Denny-Chambers' newest book, Finger Fitness Études, Book 3. My name is Josh Gu, and I'm taking my years of experience learning, teaching, and performing, and sharing all of my best clarinet and music tips so you can get more out of your practice, and most importantly, have fun. You can learn more about all of my many resources at QuickStartClarinet.com, and don't forget to subscribe to this channel and hit the bell to get notified when I post new videos. If you've seen my review of Book 2 of the Finger Fitness Études, then you have an idea of what these are all about, and Book 3 does all of the things that Book 2 does great, and then adds on more and builds on top of it with a little bit more challenging etudes and a lot more etudes in different styles, which I'll talk about a little bit more. One of the other things in Book 3 that I'm personally the most excited about is that there's an etude that's dedicated to me. In all of the books, she dedicates each etude to a friend, colleague, or professional, or somebody from the clarinet world, and I'm really excited that there's one in here that's dedicated to me. I'm going to go ahead and actually start by playing that one to give you a little bit of an idea of how these etudes go and sort of the flavor of this Finger Fitness Études Book 3. So this is the one that's dedicated to me, titled Give Me a Break. She said it's sort of inspired by my foundational and fundamental stuff that I teach, like crossing the break, and this etude in particular tackles a lot of crossing the break things. So you can see one of the first things that's new in Book 3 compared to Book 2 and Book 1 is that it's a little bit harder. Even after having practiced this one quite a bit and recorded it, it's a bit tricky. Even for me, there's still some mistakes that you're hearing in that recording, and that's great. That's great news that there's so much of a higher skill ceiling in these ones, whereas in Book 2 and even more so in Book 1, I felt like I could more or less sight read through them, and of course I could definitely dig into them more and always go for more musicality and more consistency in performance, but these ones are really challenging me. Sight reading them, I can sight read them somewhat comfortably with a handful of mistakes, and then even when I really dig into it and practice them, getting them to performance tempo and things like that can be really challenging. This one, the tempo is vivace, racing with determination in 1. So it's in 2/4, but you feel it in 1 because it's really nice and brisk, and that really quick tempo is a added challenge. Something that she's done in all the books and continues with this one is that there aren't actual metronome markings for them. There's just the vivace or waltz or minuetto or tempo markings like that, which I actually really appreciate because it leaves open your interpretation to how fast you actually want it to go. But that was my interpretation of racing with determination, and you can see that it's a good bit of a challenge to really get that all coordinated well and sounding really great. Another thing that's new to book 3 is so much more variety of style. In book 2, there was one or two or a few jazz etudes and a little bit of dabbling with some more contemporary techniques, but this book takes that to the next level with several etudes in a more jazzy style. There's a klezmer style etude. There's much more contemporary techniques in here, including some 12-tone action, and even a samba style that's dedicated to Paquito de Rivera. So there's all kinds of variety and lots of fun stuff in this book. Another thing that sort of adds to the difficulty of it is the range is a little bit expanded. This one goes all the way up to high G, and I think if I remember right, there's even like one G sharp or A in there, so there's some much higher notes to be tackling and incorporating into your finger fitness. And just with all of the different styles and the added difficulty, I feel like this book I can personally really dig into and really get a lot out of. And I think it makes a perfect addition to the series where you have book 1 that's pretty basic, but has a lot of fun for those different finger technique things. I think for not quite a beginner, I think some of her like prep steps before you crepsh and some of those kinds of books are great for true beginners. But I think the Finger Fitness Etudes book 1 is great for people who've been playing maybe a year, you're feeling really good and comfortable with your chromatic scale and things like that, and want to get this finger workout on some really nice music. Book 2, I think, is fantastic for intermediate players. A lot of my students, I use etudes out of book 2 to work on with them to teach things like really even rhythm, really even finger control, starting to do some musical interpretation, looking at phrases and things like that. So that's fantastic for sort of the intermediate level player. And I think book 3 is really starting to push into the advanced level. I think it's not quite as advanced as something like a Cavallini etude book, which is nice because Cavallini can be really daunting. Even for me, I don't often feel like I want to sit down and just warm up with a Cavallini etude just because it's so much work to figure out where I'm going with the notes and things like that. It's bordering on a piece that I actually really need to really dig into and think about. Finger Fitness Etudes book 3, I think, is in that perfect sweet spot where it's challenging enough that I really need to think about what my fingers are doing, but I can still more or less sight read through it without too many mistakes that it gets in the way of actually working on my clarinet playing. So it's that perfect balance between fresh and new and engaging and things that I actually want to play, along with technically demanding and challenging and building my clarinet skills at the same time. So it slots in perfectly in my practice routine of I do my warm-ups, that's the core basic fundamentals, and then etudes like this are a perfect bridge towards the more advanced solo pieces and things like that I'm working on. I need to really dig into and practice a lot to get the hang of. So it's a perfect bridge and fits really nicely into my personal practice routine there. And again, I think all of the Finger Fitness Etudes do a perfect job of that, where book 2, if you're a little bit more at the intermediate level, and I think book 1, if you're a little bit more at the advanced-ish beginner level. To keep this review and overview a little bit balanced, I will add one critique that I found. In book 2 especially, I found that the form of each etude was pretty standard and predictable. You'd sort of have an A section, a B section that ended in a like fermata, ritardando, maybe a little cadenza, and then a return to the A section. And I think it's just a very sort of standard form that Dr. Kristen Denny-Chambers uses a lot in her compositions and the etudes as well. I find though in book 3, that kind of predictability to the form is still there. There are some that don't follow that quite as strictly, which is nice. And I think because it's a little bit more challenging, it provides good freshness to it. So I haven't found myself getting tired of the predictability in this book as much as I did in book 2. And I've been sort of playing around with this for about a month now. So I've had a good amount of time with it to really dig into it and see where everything's going. And again, it could just be because there's a little bit less predictability to it. and also it's a little bit harder. So I think that's really making it more engaging and probably more appropriate for my level of playing as well. The other thing I'll say too is it's not necessarily a bad thing that there's that predictability to the form. It makes it really useful when I'm working on it with students, where most of it, even in book 3, most of the phrases are 8-bar or so phrases, but that's a really great thing when you're talking about form and starting to introduce analysis with students. So even though every now and then I get a little tired of it when I'm personally playing through it, I think it's fantastic as a teaching tool and really helpful for doing some of that intro to analysis and starting to really dig into the music and see what's going on. So I hope that gives you a little bit of a taste of what these Finger Fitness Etudes are all about. I think they're one of the best ways to really dig into some good finger technique things and sort of develop your good finger coordination in a musical and interesting way rather than just doing the boring finger combinations. And that's of course the whole mission of these books. Is at the top of each etude you have the sort of boring, repetitive finger pattern, which is good to do and you should practice. And she has some stuff in the beginning that I really love for tips and advice on how to use the book and sort of instructions. And I think it's spot on how you should be tackling these things. So you do the sort of basic, boring cloche type finger mechanisms, and then you get to really make music out of it. And I just love it for developing the finger technique, for teaching musicality and form, like I was mentioning, and all that great stuff. So if you're looking for some really fun etudes, I highly recommend the Finger Fitness Etudes Book 3 by Dr. Kristen Denny-Chambers. And if you're watching this video around when it was published in August of 2023, then you might be in luck to catch an awesome back-to-school sale that she is doing. Head over to clarinetplayground.com and you can check out all of the information about this sale. There's always good seasonal sales that she's doing, so even if you aren't watching this at back to school time, maybe go head over to the website, check it out. Even if it's not on sale, the price is a really, really good deal for everything that you're getting. So go to clarinetplayground.com, get Finger Fitness Etudes Book 3. If you're watching during this back-to-school sale, you can get all of the books and all the MP3 recordings in an awesome bundle deal. It would be great to work through those really more basic foundational ones in Book 1, dig into that intermediate quality and form analysis and all that good stuff in Book 2, and then challenge yourself with Book 3. So that's the Finger Fitness Etudes. I hope you check it out. I hope you enjoyed this little overview. Thanks so much for watching this video, and I look forward to seeing you in another one. And last but not least, a huge heartfelt thank you to the Dennersons. This is like the QuickStart Clarinet family who supports the channel and helps to make everything that I do possible. If you would like to support the channel and get some awesome rewards in return where we can work one-on-one over video and you can have my full support moving forward on your clarinet journey, then go to quickstartclarinet.com/supporter.